What's up, guys? This is Preheat, and boy, do we have some good news for you today. We actually finally got some feedback from Blizzard when it comes to the Mage Talents, and it's looking pretty good. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right on into it. We don't actually have new trees yet, but I'm sure that stuff will be coming out probably tomorrow. I just want to get this video out as soon as possible, though. Let's just hop right into it. So to start things off, we're just going to open up the blue post and just talk through it, right? Because there's a lot in here that's really, really good. So let's just look at the first line, right? Just the first sentence here. Blizzard has announced Mage Talent Tree changes coming in the next Dragonflight Alpha build, including a large redesign to the core class tree. You're already speaking my language, Blizzard. I love to see it. In reorganization of the Arcane Tree. Okay, so here are like two big things, two big problems with the current Mage Tree, and right out the gate, they're addressing both of them. So this is, pretty good so far. So the whole post here, I'm just gonna read through it, and then we'll talk about kind of how this impacts mages. So they said, hello mages, in this week's alpha update, there will be a number of updates to both the core and spec trees of the Mage class tree. We'd like to talk a bit about our design direction for this iteration and improvements we're looking to make. So starting off on the core tree, right, we have the core tree seeing the heaviest redesign. Our goal has been to increase the options by adding new spells, reducing overall multi-point nodes, love to hear that, and cutting all existing 3-point nodes. This is so hyped to hear because honestly, this was like the biggest issue, I think, with the Mage class tree, other than just the connections. There's just like so many points that are bloated, so many 3-pointers, right? Like if we look at the Mage tree here, right, we've got at least 5. So all of these are going away, and they're going to be doing something better with it. And they're also going to be improving the pathing, which we'll have to see how that actually turns out. But so far, so good, right? Several choice nodes have been split into standalone nodes to increase utility options. We've also been looking to reduce the number of nodes that may feel required. Kona Cold will be moving baseline to improve the base kit and remove dependency issues. This is huge for Frost, right? And the fact that they're talking about this, the fact that they're bringing up the fact that there's like these nodes that are not really optional, you have to take them, and they see that as a problem is really, really good. So just, to kind of talk about a little bit of what their examples are here. We have a new talent, Reflection. This is basically just displacement, right? Teleports you back to where you blinked, only usable within 8 seconds of blinking, 45-second cooldown. Basically displacement, but available all mage, not just arcane, so that's really good. Volatile Detonation greatly increases the effect of Blast Wave's knockback. Blast Wave cooldown is reduced by 5 seconds. This is obviously like a PvP talent, right? But the fact that you're getting a good knockback as a mage is also pretty cool. Kind of reminds me of like the old Blast Wave, right? Back when you were able to knock people off cliffs with it and stuff. And then the other two, we already kind of know about these. I actually covered this in a previous video, but we have Time Manipulation, which was a data mine spell. Basically, you get less, basically less cooldown on your loss of control, like Dragon's Breath, stuff like that, by just casting your abilities. We also have Energized Barriers, which makes it so that if you get meleeed, you have a chance to get a resource. So obviously both of those are kind of PvP oriented, but I mean, still very welcome, right? So anyways, they said some of the work is ongoing and you can expect to see a couple nodes marked not yet implemented for now. Okay. All right, so moving on to the fire tree. So they said, we feel the pathing in the tree has not allowed for enough exploration due to nodes that feel required. We're looking to reduce the number of mandatory points by moving a few spells baseline. Okay, all right. So what spells are they moving baseline? Well, it turns out it's going to be Hot Streak and Fire Blast rank 2 as in their example here, right? But they said they're also providing more options below Gate 1 and 2, and Phoenix Flames is actually being moved up to Gate 1. So we don't know exactly like what all is happening, right? This list is not exhaustive. These are not all of the changes that we're going to have for Fire, but they're obviously looking at the right things because they're addressing the fact that Fire has all of these abilities that don't really make sense to be talents because they aren't a choice, right? You have to have them. And they're making those things baseline, which means we have more points to play around with, right? More options for other capstone stuff. Playing around with other talents. We'll have to see what actually ends up being in the tree after they make these changes. But this is a really good start. So it's looking really good. I think that the fire tree in general is like it's definitely the best of the mage trees right now. But I'm glad that they're even with the best example, right? The one that got the least criticism. I'm glad that they're still considering changes to make that tree better. And hopefully they reorganize some of the capstones at like the 3, below like tier 2, right? So like the 3rd section of the tree. Hopefully they look into some of those and how they're organized and improve things a bit. But yeah, so far so good, right? This is all great. Frost Tree. A good amount of feedback for this tree has been related to the Icy Veins nodes and how required they feel, which is leading to little choice in the bottom third of the tree. We're looking to allow for more backtracking and additional choice. To accomplish this, we're making all 3-point nodes into 2-point nodes. This is huge, right? Because there's a lot of nodes for Frost that are 3-point nodes, and it's kind of clogging up the whole system, right? We don't really have the ability to choose what we want to choose. This is one of the big things I was talking about with the middle of the tree, right? We've got these hugely expensive traits, and we just don't get really as much out of it as it feels like you should. So they're addressing that. They're reducing the cost of these, which is automatically good, right? But then they go on to say, reducing the point count on the Icy Veins related nodes below the gate 2, right? So that's going to be all of these guys. There's a lot of them that cost 2, so those would be 1-pointers now, which is really good. And then they also said Winter's Chill functionality will now be baseline for Flurry. This is huge, right? Because one of the biggest issues I had with this tree is I felt a little salty about the fact that you had to go and grab this talent. It doesn't even lead you anywhere else. It's just a dead point. Flurry literally doesn't do anything unless you have Winter's Chill, right? So the fact that you had to put 2 talents in here felt really bad. Flurry obviously still requires Brain Freeze as well, right? But at least it's just 2 instead of 3. This coupled with the fact that they're removing the need for like Cone of Cold here, they're allowing more flexibility by just making things cost less, right? Across the tree, especially in the middle. These are all fantastic changes. We still have to see how it ends up turning out, because for Frost, you know, Frost has other issues, right? Like Icy Propulsion, in my mind, is still an issue for this spec, but they're addressing it here, and they're actually talking about making things more accessible, making more options for you as a Frost Mage, hopefully more playstyles, right? And yeah, I mean, it's just the fact that we don't have to put as many talents into these nodes, especially this one right here, Improved Icy Veins. Such a trash node for 2 points. The fact that they're making this a 1-pointer is very exciting. So definitely looking forward to seeing the Frost Tree. I feel like after these changes, the Frost Tree will probably be the worst off. After we get to the Arcane, you'll understand why. But, you know, at least they're addressing some of this stuff right away. So this is really good. And then let's move on to the big part of this. This is like the meat and potatoes of the update. So Arcane is getting a huge amount of love here. We have the Arcane Tree. It's being updated. They're doing reorganization of talents. They're making a whole bunch of adjustments, right? They've adjusted cooldowns. They've adjusted how the abilities actually work. And then they want to talk about some of the highlights. So keep in mind this, all of the stuff we've covered so far and what we're about to cover, this is not an exhaustive list of changes. This is not all they're going to be changing, right? There will be more changes, and we'll have to wait and see how those turn out. But they specifically said below is a highlight of some of the changes. There's actually more changing for Arcane than just what they listed. But let's talk about what they listed, right? Because some of this stuff is absolutely insane. So to start things off, Arcane Bombardment is now a 1-pointer. Same with Arcane Echo. So for those of you who aren't super familiar with the tree, those are going to be the traits right here. Arcane Echo, Arcane Bombardment. These are points that you have to put in below this capstone line, right? So like this is where points get really, really tight. So the fact that we're getting an additional point here is already huge on its own, right? This change alone is just massive for Arcane, but there's a lot more, right? So we also have Arcane Surge is now going to give you a burst of mana so that you can immediately cast afterwards. This is a nice little quality of life change. And then honestly, this is the biggest thing for me. Arcane Orb. Moved up the tree, is now available before the first gate directly after Arcane Missiles. I mean, come on. Come on. This is the best thing. I mean, literally, this is the biggest problem for Arcane, and they're moving Arcane Orb up, so we aren't losing Orb. They've freed the Orb. I'm so excited for it. Just to give you like an idea, right? It's going to go in this spot right here, I'm assuming. So like if you look Arcane Missiles, right? They said it's below Arcane Missiles. They also say later on that Rule of Thirds is moving. So it's likely going to be in this spot right here where my mouse is. So that's very good. And then Rule of Threes is now a choice node with Arcane Familiar. The choice is swap places with Arcane Tempo. So basically they're putting Rule of Threes in here with Arcane Familiar, and then it's going to be put in the place of Arcane Tempo wherever that one is. Oh, it's right over here, right? So they're basically moving this guy down here, and they're putting Rule of 3 inside of Arcane Familiar. This is also a good change because I'm not really a fan of Arcane Familiar, and the fact that I don't have to choose it now to progress down the tree sounds great to me. We also have Evocation cooldown reduced to 90 seconds, down from 120 seconds. Just great quality of life thing. Improved Evocation has been completely cut. They made Siphon Storm converted into a single node, and now it's just the one right after Evocation. So instead of having to put in like multiple into whatever it is there, it's just going to be a single node. It's not going to be a choice node anymore. So, you know, same as before, you just put 1 point into it, but you don't have to worry about choosing between it and Improved Evocation because Improved Evocation is just gone. They've just improved the Evocation on its own, right? You don't need a talent for that. And then Charged Orb is now available after unlocking the first gate, which means it's going to be moved up basically to up here, right? And then it says Charged Orb grants Arcane Orb 1 additional charge. To me, this talent actually doesn't really do much at all, but I am happy at least that they're moving it with the orb, and it feels like they're at least thinking the right things. So, you know, even though I'm not necessarily a big fan of this talent, I appreciate that they're moving it essentially to be with the orb. And then Orb Barrage, converted into a single node, was previously a choice node. That's going to be this guy right here, right? This is the one that we're discussing. They actually didn't say it's moving up, but they said it's converted into a single node. They said now also reduces the cooldown of Arcane Orb by 2 seconds when clear casting is consumed. This is actually very interesting because it's going to do that in addition to everything else it does, right? So if we read the tooltip, it says casting arcane missiles 15 times fires an arcane orb at your target. Clear cast arcane missiles count as 2. But that's not all that's happening, right? Because every time we use a clear cast, we're getting 2 seconds off of Arcane Orb cooldown, which is already fairly short, right? The cooldown is only 20 seconds. So that means, you know, in that 20 seconds, if you get like 4 or 5 clear castings, right? You just have an Arcane Orb that's got 25% less cooldown. So, I mean, hey, you know, honestly, even better than the second charge on Arcane Orb in my mind. But yeah, not sure if we'll use that talent, but it's definitely, you know, it went from being complete trash to, hey, you know, this might actually be something we use, right? Which is kind of the whole point of talents. So Nether Tempest. Position on the tree has moved towards the center of the talent tree as a choice node with Reverberate connecting from Mana Adept and improved Arcane Barrage. So basically what they're doing is, and I'm jumping ahead here, but Reverberate is also going to be mixed in with this, right? So they're taking Reverberate, that's all the way over here on the right. They're taking Nether Tempest, which is all the way on the left. They're putting them together, and they're putting them roughly where Improved Barrage is, wherever that is on the tree. Let's see. It's right here, right? So it's going to be somewhere kind of central, somewhere where we can actually access it without having to do too much work. So that's really good as well. That actually allows us to use some of those talents, right? Because as it is right now in this tree, you don't really want to go this far out, right? It doesn't really make sense to go for Reverberate or for Nether Tempest because you have a direct line there anyways from the only talent that leads to it, right? So the fact that they're moving these is very big. We also have Conjure Mana Gem. They've increased it to 25% mana, which is quite a bit better than it was, right? More than double. And it also gives the spell power baseline, which is a nice little added effect. And then they went further to make it so that it now grants you 2 stacks of clear casting whenever you consume it. This is just Mirrors of Torment, but it's a mana gem and it's off the GCD, right? So if you just pop your mana gem, you're going to get up to 2 stacks of clear casting, plus you get all the mana. This is going to be absolutely huge for Arcane Echo, right? Because if you remember, Arcane Echo, you want to have as much clear casting as possible whenever you're running this, right? Because you just want to have the target keep exploding, right? And how we did that in Shadowlands is we used Mirrors of Torment. But now we have the Arcane Orb that basically gives us those clear castings. We're able to put up the Touch of the Magi and then just start spamming missiles into it. And as soon as we run out of clear casting, we can just immediately Mana Orb, get 2 more stacks of clear casting. So I'm very excited to see how this turns out. This is looking really good. And then we also have Enlightened, which has been moved down to row 8. That's going to be down in the first row of the capstone area, right? And I think that actually does make a lot of sense for this talent because Enlightened is a talent that seems kind of out of place where it is right now, right? And what they're doing is instead they are moving Resonance into its place. So instead of Enlightened being here, it's going to be somewhere on this row. And then they're going to take Resonance, which is over here, and they're going to put it in the slot where Enlightened was, just making it generally easier to get, which is great. And then they also made Presence of Mind better by reducing the cooldown to 45 seconds. And this really helps a lot with how Arcane's playstyle is because Arcane basically operates on a 45-second rotation, right? Like it's every 45 seconds you have a mini burn or you have a big burn. That's just how it works, right? Yeah, these Arcane changes are fantastic. Like, honestly, I don't know how else to really describe it. I mean, they really hit all of the problems that I felt like Arcane had, except for one. There's one issue I still have with Arcane, and that's that I feel like with the current tree, and maybe this will change, right? Because we don't know all the changes they're making, but with the current tree, it feels like there's really only one playstyle for Arcane, which is the Kyrian Harmony Radiant Spark build, which, you know, I'm a big fan of it, right? I'll be honest, like I'm very biased towards it. However, I do think that Arcane should have a playstyle that is more Arcane Blast centric, where it's more like the classic Arcane, where you're just spending your mana with Arcane Blast, as opposed to just spamming Arcane Missiles without clear casting. So I do hope that in the final tree that we get hopefully tomorrow, that we see some consideration for maybe different playstyles for Arcane. But yeah, overall, I mean, these are all fantastic changes. I would say the biggest thing for me is the core tree, right? Because that affects all 3 specs. And it seems like they really are considering the feedback on this. I mean, surprisingly so. This is way better than I expected. But obviously, you know, the other specs are getting some love too, especially Arcane. So in closing, Blizzard has really done a fantastic job with these changes. I'm very excited to see how this pans out. I feel like they're actually listening to feedback, which is really a welcome change, because I felt like, you know, and I'm sure if you play Mage 2, if you follow this stuff, I'm sure you also felt a little discouraged, right? For the past couple weeks, we didn't really get any updates. But, you know, it's fine. If they're going to make changes like this, where they actually are considering the feedback and they're making, you know, all these fantastic considerations, I'm okay with it. I'm now okay with the delay. It's totally fine. And looking forward to see what the talents actually look like. So yeah, that about does it. I mean, I don't really have anything else to talk about here. I'm sure I'll be making another video probably tomorrow, but I was just too hyped up by these changes to keep it to myself. I wanted to put out a video as soon as possible. So let me know if you like these changes. Let me know what you were hoping to see. Me personally, what I was hoping to see is just delete Icy Propulsion, right? But yeah, in the comments, tell me what you think, you know, you're excited for, and you know, what you're hoping to see in these talent changes. But you know, I think it's pretty safe to say that this is a positive thing. I don't really see any way for anyone to be upset about these changes, unless maybe there just wasn't one included that they wanted. But yeah, I mean, this is just like overwhelmingly positive, way better than I expected, and I'm very excited to see more. So anyways, thank you all for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more of this content, go ahead and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.